I don't expect the president to wake up tomorrow and view the world any differently than he did when he woke up this morning. He knows I won't either.
Republicans sweep to victory and control of the U.S. Congress. What does it mean for President Obama and U.S. policy at home and abroad? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. U.S. President Barack Obama and the Democrat Party suffered a crushing political defeat in U.S. midterm elections, losing control of the Senate, with their Republican opponents on the verge of securing their largest majority in the House of Representatives in nearly 75 years. Republicans rode a wave of voter discontent, dealing a blow to a president whose low approval ratings contributed heavily to his party's electoral drubbing. He now faces a final 2 years in office, with opponents controlling both branches of Congress, limiting his legislative agenda. Later, we'll talk with a presidential scholar and two international journalists about what it means for some of the key hot-button issues. But first, some analysis from CCTV's Jessica Stone. Jessica, take us through the election, the biggest winners and losers, and were there any surprises?
Well, Anna, the reality is that it really didn't take very long for the Republicans to pick up the 6 seats that they needed to win the majority in the U.S. Senate. In fact, they had it sewn up by the stroke of midnight, picking up that last seat in North Carolina, a state that President Barack Obama himself had said was the key to Democrats keeping the Senate. They did not. It was no surprise that most Americans voted to change the state of the U.S. economy. It was a little bit of a surprise, though, that in lesser numbers, they actually voted on the issue of U.S. foreign policy.
Now, Jessica, there are a number of pressing hot-button issues, as we know, that are in play with the new Congress, among them ISIL, arming the Syrian rebels, immigration and energy. What can we expect now on those issues?
Well, Anand, on the question of what the U.S. should do in the Middle East broadly, it's clear that a GOP Senate will be more interventionist. We're more likely to see support for sending ground troops to Iraq or to Syria, but we're less likely to see support for the Iran nuclear deal that's currently in negotiation. There's also going to be less support to pressure Israel into stopping its settlement building. On immigration, we have to remember that it was the GOP-led House, not the U.S. Senate, who defeated a bipartisan plan to achieve comprehensive immigration reform. So we're actually less likely now to see a comprehensive immigration bill under this Congress. That means all eyes are on the White House and whether President Barack Obama will issue an executive action to address some of the issues that Congress will not. On energy, though, I actually think we will see some movement there from both Republicans and Democrats on the stalled Keystone Oil Pipeline project, which is planned between the U.S. Gulf Coast and Canada to bring oil to refineries in the U.S. Gulf Coast. The White House has declined to make a decision. I think we'll see the U.S. Senate now have the votes to pass that proposal.
Now, with the Republicans in opposition, now they control the U.S. Senate, there will be new leadership heading key policy committees there in the Senate, bringing with them, of course, their own agenda, which is going to be different from the president. How might that change the conversation on those issues?
Well, those committee assignments have to be voted on, but some of the suspicion is that Senator John McCain or Senator Jim Inhofe, as well as Senator Bob Corker, and all of these guys are really known defense hawks, that they could take leadership positions over the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That's going to likely mean that they lead the discussion on whether to arm the moderate Syrian opposition a little bit differently than their predecessors, such as whether to send in U.S. ground troops in Iraq, or even how to react to Russian President Vladimir Putin when it comes to the Ukraine crisis. Now, on energy, the Republican majority gives a friend of oil and gas, Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, the leadership of that committee that oversees that issues, and that could mean that the U.S. Senate has the votes, as we alluded to earlier, to push through the Keystone Pipeline.
And one final question, Jessica, has anything really changed, or is the U.S. in for really more gridlock?
A lot of people are betting on this one, on it. It is certainly possible, though, that the country is headed for more gridlock. The seats that the Republicans picked up were moderate Democrats, for the most part, who were more likely to find compromises with the Republican Party. Unless the White House changes how it approaches moving legislation through Congress and strikes a more conciliatory tone than we've seen in the past, we aren't likely to see much action in this new Congress, except perhaps on trade agreements in Asia and additional oil and gas exploration in the United States.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. That's CCTV's Jessica Stone reporting.